At first glance, this fight seems pretty easy to understand. One fighter is a proven contender who spent years competing against the best flyweights in the world. The other is a rising prospect still trying to establish himself at the elite level. But the deeper I looked into this matchup, the less straightforward it became, because sometimes the most important part of a fight isn't who the better fighter is, it's the specific problems each fighter creates for each other, and that's where this matchup gets interesting. Let's put it through the Fighter Index. Before we get into the scoring, first we need to understand each fighter's blueprint. This segment answers a simple question: who is this fighter when the cage door closes? We'll break down their archetype, signature weapons, strengths, and weaknesses to better understand how they're built and what makes them dangerous. Brandon Royval is an A-tier scramble specialist built around transitions, unpredictability, and opportunistic offense. He thrives in moments between positions where small openings can quickly become submissions, reversals, or damaging exchanges. What makes Royval especially dangerous is his ability to remain offensive even when positions appear neutral or unfavorable. Rather than slowing fights down and securing control, he often creates chaos and forces opponents to navigate fast-moving situations where mistakes can become costly. Lonnie Kavanagh is an A-tier technical striker built around discipline, efficiency, and clean execution. He relies on sound fundamentals, intelligent positioning, and technical precision to gradually build advantages over opponents. What makes Kavanagh effective is his ability to minimize mistakes while consistently making good decisions throughout a fight. Rather than relying on athleticism or unpredictability, he succeeds by keeping fights structured and forcing opponents to operate within a technical framework. Every fighter has an operating system. It's the underlying strategy that connects all of their skills together and dictates the type of fight they're trying to create. For Brandon Royval, everything starts with creating opportunities. Force opponents into situations where they have to make decisions quickly. Everything Royval does serves that objective. His pressure creates reactions, his grappling creates transitions, his scrambling creates uncertainty, and every positional change creates another opportunity to attack. Royval isn't trying to slowly control opponents over the course of a fight, he's trying to create moments. A rush transition, a defensive mistake, a scramble that lasts a second too long. When his operating system is functioning properly, opponents feel like they're suddenly one mistake away from danger. Positions that appear safe suddenly seem threatening, and small openings quickly turn into offensive opportunities. The more opportunities a fight creates, the more dangerous Brandon Royval becomes. For Lonnie Kavanagh, everything starts with control. Keep the fight structured and force opponents to operate on your terms. His footwork maintains positioning, his striking creates separation, his defense minimizes mistakes, and his discipline prevents opponents from dragging him into unnecessary risks. Kavanagh isn't trying to create chaos, he's trying to eliminate it. When his operating system is functioning properly, opponents struggle to find openings, become frustrated by his consistency, and are forced to take greater risks than they normally would. Those risks often create the clean technical opportunities that Kavanagh is looking for. The more structured a fight becomes, the more dangerous Lonnie Kavanagh becomes. Every operating system is powered by a set of weapons. Those are the tools the fighter relies on most when they're at their best. The better those weapons function, the easier it becomes for them to create the type of fight they want. Brandon Royval's first signature weapon is his guillotine choke. It perfectly reflects the opportunistic nature of his game, allowing him to capitalize on rushed entries, sloppy takedowns, and mistakes during transitions. Opponents must constantly be aware of the threat because Royval is willing to attack the neck from a wide variety of positions. His second signature weapon is his knees to the body. Royval uses them to punish opponents who close distance recklessly or hesitate in front of him, creating immediate damage while disrupting their forward pressure. Whether thrown during open exchanges or transitional moments, the knees are a recurring part of his offense and help create the chaotic reactions that fuel the rest of his game. His third signature weapon is a left body kick. Royval uses it to attack opponents at range, accumulate damage, and force reactions that create opportunities elsewhere in his game. The kick also helps wear opponents down over time, making it easier to create scrambles, transitions, and offensive openings where he does his best work. Lonnie Kavanagh's first signature weapon is his 1-2 combination. It serves as the foundation of his striking game, allows him to establish rhythm, manage distance, and punish openings with clean, technical, sound offense. His ability to consistently land a jab-cross combination is a major reason why he's able to maintain control of striking exchanges. His second signature weapon is the calf kick. Kavanagh uses it to disrupt movement, accumulate damage, and make opponents hesitant to pressure forward recklessly. Over time, the calf kick helps him dictate range and creates additional opportunities for his boxing to become effective. His third signature weapon is a spinning back kick. While Kavanagh's style is built around discipline and fundamentals, the spinning back kick adds an element of unpredictability to his offense. It gives opponents another threat to consider at range and can create damaging moments when opponents become too comfortable expecting conventional attacks. Brandon Royval's biggest strength is his ability to create offense during scrambles and transitions. Few flyweights are as dangerous when positions begin changing rapidly. While many fighters prefer stable positions and predictable exchanges, Royval thrives in the chaos between positions where small openings can quickly become submissions, reversals, or damaging attacks. What makes Royval especially dangerous is his opportunistic finishing ability. Whether the fight is taking place on the feet or on the ground, he does an excellent job recognizing mistakes and capitalizing on them immediately. Opponents often feel like they're one bad decision away from finding themselves in serious trouble. His pace and activity are another major strength. Royval constantly forces opponents to react, creating a fight that is often uncomfortable and difficult to control. Even when exchanges become messy or unpredictable, he remains willing to attack, which allows him to generate opportunities that more conservative fighters might never find. Brandon Royval's biggest weakness is that his aggressive style can sometimes create opportunities for his opponents as well. Because he's constantly looking to attack and capitalize on openings, there are moments where he can become vulnerable to clean counters, positional mistakes, or defensive lapses. He can also struggle against highly disciplined fighters who refuse to engage in the type of chaotic exchanges that fuel his offense. Royval is most dangerous when opponents are forced to make decisions and react under pressure. Fighters who remain patient, technically sound, and positionally responsible can limit many of the situations where he does his best work. Another challenge is that Royval's willingness to embrace chaos can occasionally make fights more difficult than they need to be. While that unpredictability creates opportunities, it can also lead to moments where opponents are able to land clean shots, secure advantageous positions, or capitalize on mistakes that wouldn't exist in a more controlled style. Lonnie Kavanagh's biggest strength is his technical striking. He does an excellent job maintaining structure, making sound decisions, and consistently landing clean offense without exposing himself to unnecessary risk. His disciplined approach allows him to control exchanges and steadily build advantages throughout a fight. What makes Kavanagh especially effective is his positional awareness and range management. He understands where he wants the fight to take place and does a really good job of using footwork, distance control, and shot selection to keep opponents operating at his preferred range. That ability to dictate positioning makes it difficult for opponents to force him into unfavorable situations. His composure is another major strength. Kavanagh rarely appears rushed or overwhelmed, even when opponents attempt to increase the pace or create chaotic exchanges. He remains committed to his game plan, avoids unnecessary mistakes, and consistently looks for the highest percentage opportunities available to him. Lonnie Kavanagh's biggest weakness is that his style can be challenged by fighters who thrive outside of structure. Much of his success comes from keeping fights organized and forcing opponents to operate within a technical framework. Fighters who create chaos, force scrambles, and constantly change positions can sometimes make it difficult for him to maintain the control his game depends on. He can also be tested by opponents who are willing to maintain a relentless pace and force extended exchanges. Kavanagh is very effective when he can dictate the rhythm of a fight, but opponents who refuse to slow down can reduce the amount of time he has to make the calculated decisions that define his style. Another challenge is that his measured approach can occasionally limit his offensive output. Because he prioritizes efficiency and minimizing mistakes, there are times when more aggressive opponents are able to create volume advantages or generate momentum simply by forcing a higher pace than he would naturally prefer. Now that we understand each fighter's blueprint, it's time to quantify it. The skill matrix answers one question: how do these fighters compare skill for skill? We'll score all 16 Fighter Index skills across 4 pillars to identify where the biggest advantages and vulnerabilities exist in the matchup. Fighter Index scores are measured on a scale from 1 to 10, where 5 represents a functional UFC level skill, 7 creates real advantages, and 10 represents a rare or generational ability. Pillar 1, Fight IQ and Athletic Tools. The first pillar measures the mental and physical tools that influence every phase of a fight. This includes fight IQ, athleticism, stamina, and resolve. Fight IQ is even, with both fighters scoring a 7. Royval and Kavanagh approach fights very differently, but both have demonstrated a strong understanding of how to implement their games. Royval excels at recognizing opportunities in chaotic situations, while Kavanagh thrives through discipline, structure, and sound decision-making. Athleticism is also even, with both fighters scoring an 8. Royval's speed, explosiveness, and ability to create offense during transitions make him a dangerous athlete, while Kavanagh's quickness, balance, and movement allow him to execute his technical style effectively. In stamina, Brendan Royval scores an 8 compared to a 7 for Lonnie Kavanagh. Royval has repeatedly shown the ability to maintain a demanding pace across hard-fought battles and continue creating offense deep into those fights. Kavanagh possesses solid conditioning, but Royval's proven ability to sustain chaos and activity gives him the edge. The biggest gap in the pillar comes in resolve, where Royval scores a 9 compared to a 7 for Kavanagh. Throughout his career, Royval has consistently demonstrated toughness, resilience, and a willingness to continue fighting through adversity. Whether he's hurt, behind in a fight, or navigating difficult positions, he's repeatedly shown the ability to remain dangerous and find ways back into the contest. Overall, Pillar 1 favors Brandon Royval. Fight IQ and athleticism are evenly matched, but Royval's advantages in stamina and especially resolve give him the edge in the mental and physical tool pillar. Pillar 2, Striking and Stand-Up Defense. The second pillar measures each fighter's effectiveness on the feet. This includes striking, clinch, striking defense, and chin. In striking, Lonnie Kavanagh scores an 8 compared to a 7 for Brandon Royval. Kavanagh is the more technically polished striker, doing an excellent job managing range, maintaining structure, and consistently landing clean offense. Royval is dangerous on the feet, but much of his success comes from creating chaos and forcing reactions rather than winning purely technical striking exchanges. In clinch, Brendan Royval scores a 7 to Kavanagh's 6. Royval is comfortable creating offense in close quarters and often uses clinch exchanges as opportunities to create transitions, scrambles, and grappling sequences. Kavanagh is capable in the clinch, but it's not his primary area of his game. The largest technical gap in the pillar comes in striking defense, where Kavanagh scores a 7 compared to a 5 for Royval. Royval's aggressive style often leaves defensive openings, and he's historically been willing to absorb damage in order to create offensive opportunities. Kavanagh's more disciplined and measured approach allows him to avoid damage more consistently and maintain better defensive structure throughout exchanges. Royval answers back in the chin category, scoring an 8 compared to a 6 for Kavanagh. Throughout his UFC career, Royval's repeatedly demonstrated the ability to absorb significant damage, recover, and continue fighting aggressively. While Kavanagh's shown toughness, Royval's durability has been tested against a much higher level of competition. Overall, Pillar 2 is extremely competitive. Kavanagh holds clear advantages in striking technique and striking defense, while Royval owns advantages in the clinch and durability. When all four categories are considered together, this pillar narrowly favors Loney Kavanagh because of his superior technical striking and defensive reliability. Pillar 3, Grappling and Control. The third pillar measures each fighter's ability to initiate, control, and capitalize on grappling exchanges. This includes wrestling, takedown offense, top control, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In wrestling, Brendan Royval scores a 7 compared to a 6 for Loney Kavanagh. While wrestling's not the foundation of either fighter's game, Royval has shown the greater ability to compete in grappling-heavy fights and use wrestling to create scrambles and transitions where he does his best work. In takedown offense, Royval scores a 6 to Kavanagh's 5. Neither fighter relies heavily on offensive wrestling, but Royval is more willing to initiate grappling exchanges and use takedowns as a way to create opportunities rather than simply control positions. Top control is even, with both fighters scoring a 5. Neither fighter is known for prolonged periods of dominant control from top position. Royval generally prefers to attack submissions and create movement, while Kavanagh is more comfortable keeping fights in the striking phase altogether. The biggest gap in the pillar comes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where Royval scores an 8 compared to a 6 for Kavanagh. Royval is one of the more dangerous submission threats in the flyweight division, possessing the ability to attack from a variety of positions and capitalize on mistakes during transitions. Kavanagh is a capable grappler, but Royval's submission game is a clear step above. Overall, Pillar 3 favors Brendan Royval. The wrestling and takedown offense categories are competitive, but Royval's advantages in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu give him a meaningful edge in the grappling and control pillar. Pillar 4, Defense, Scrambles, and Ground Survival. The fourth pillar measures each fighter's ability to defend grappling exchanges, survive difficult positions, and regain advantageous positions when fights become chaotic. This includes takedown defense, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense, off the back, and scrambles. Takedown defense is even, with both fighters scoring a 7. Neither fighter is easy to control, and both have demonstrated the ability to defend takedowns and force opponents to work for grappling success. While they arrive there through different styles, both possess competent defensive wrestling. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense, Brendan Royval scores an 8 compared to a 7 for Loney Kavanagh. Royval's experience against elite flyweights and his comfort navigating dangerous grappling exchanges give him a slight edge. He's repeatedly shown the ability to recognize threats, defend submissions, and remain offensive through difficult positions. The biggest gap in this pillar comes in off the back, where Royval scores a 9 compared to a 6 for Kavanagh. Few fighters in the division are as dangerous from the bottom position as Royval is. Rather than simply defending, he actively looks to create sweeps, submissions, scrambles, and reversals. Opponents often find that securing top position against Brendan Royval is only the beginning of the problem. Scrambles also favor Royval, who scores a 9 compared to an 8 for Kavanagh. Both fighters are capable scramblers, but Royval is one of the best scramble specialists in the sport. His ability to create offense during transitions and capitalize on rapidly changing positions is a defining characteristic of his game and one of the primary reasons he's so difficult to control. Overall, Pillar 4 favors Brendan Royval. Kavanagh is a capable defensive grappler, but Royval's elite abilities off his back and during scrambles give him a significant advantage in the defensive grappling pillar. And finally, we arrive at the Fighter Index Composite Score. This score combines all 16 Fighter Index skills to answer one question: who is the more complete fighter overall? It's important to remember that this isn't a prediction model. A higher score doesn't guarantee victory, it measures overall completeness across every phase of MMA. Brendan Royval earns a Fighter Index Composite Score of 7.4. Royval's score reflects one of the most well-rounded and dangerous skill sets in the flyweight division. While his game is often associated with scrambles and chaos, the skill metric shows a fighter who scores well across nearly every phase of MMA. His durability, grappling, scrambling ability, and opportunistic offense allow him to remain dangerous regardless of where the fight takes place. Loney Kavanagh earns a Fighter Index Composite Score of 6.6. Kavanagh's score reflects a skilled and disciplined fighter whose strengths are concentrated in technical striking, positioning, and defensive responsibility. He scored well throughout the skill matrix and showed very few glaring weaknesses, but he currently lacks the breadth of proven advantages that Royval has developed against elite competition. On paper, the Fighter Index sees Brendan Royval as the more complete fighter. The next question is whether Royval can create the type of chaotic, opportunity-rich fight where his strengths can thrive, or whether Kavanagh can keep the fight structured enough for his technical striking advantages to take control. Now that we've broken down the fighters individually and examined how their styles interact, we can focus on one of the most important questions: how does each fighter win? This segment identifies the conditions, strategies, and moments each fighter needs to create to give themselves the best chance of victory. Brendan Royval's path to victory is built around turning this fight into the type of unpredictable, opportunity-rich contest that's defined much of his career. The biggest comparison in the matchup is Royval's 8 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 9 in off the back, and 9 in scrambles against Kavanagh's preference for structure and technical control. The more transitions, scrambles, and positional changes this fight contains, the more opportunities Royval has to create offense. Royval also needs to pressure Kavanagh into making decisions. Kavanagh is a disciplined technical striker who does his best work when fights remain organized and predictable. Royval's goal should be to disrupt that structure by increasing the pace, forcing reactions, and creating exchanges where instinct matters more than preparation. Every scramble and every unexpected transition creates another chance for Royval to capitalize. The striking battle will be important as well. While Kavanagh holds the advantage in technical striking and striking defense, Royval's durability allows him to take risks that many fighters would avoid. He doesn't need to win a clean kickboxing match. He needs to create enough chaos to pull Kavanagh away from the type of fight where Kavanagh is most comfortable. Most importantly, Royval needs to make Kavanagh uncomfortable. Kavanagh wants a technical fight fought at his preferred range and pace. Royval wants the exact opposite. If he can force Kavanagh into frequent scrambles, extended exchanges, and difficult decisions, he can create the opportunities that fuel his offense. For Royval, this fight is about creating opportunities and capitalizing on them. If he can drag Kavanagh into a fight that becomes increasingly chaotic and unpredictable, he has a very clear path to victory. Lonnie Kavanagh's path to victory is built around maintaining control of the fight and preventing Royval from creating the type of chaos that makes him so dangerous. The biggest comparison in this matchup is Kavanagh's 8 in striking and 7 in striking defense against Royval's 7 in striking and 5 in striking defense. Kavanagh is the cleaner, more technical striker, and the longer he can keep the fight at striking range, the more opportunities he'll have to separate himself on the scorecards. Range management is going to be critical. Royval thrives when opponents are forced into reactive situations and rapid decision making. Kavanagh needs to use his footwork, 1-2 combination, and calf kicks to keep the fight structured and make Royval operate within that technical framework. The fewer scrambles and transitions that occur, the better the fight becomes for Kavanagh. Defensive discipline is equally important. Royval is one of the most dangerous scramble specialists in the division, and even seemingly favorable positions can become dangerous against him. Kavanagh must avoid unnecessary grappling exchanges, stay positionally responsible, and resist the temptation to chase opportunities that could expose him to submission or reversals. Most importantly, Kavanagh needs to remain patient. Royval's style is designed to create mistakes and rush decisions. Kavanagh's greatest strengths are his discipline, composure, and ability to consistently make good choices throughout a fight. If he can stay committed to that approach, he can force Royval to take greater risks than he normally would. For Kavanagh, this fight is about structure, discipline, and technical execution. If he can keep the fight organized, manage range effectively, and avoid Royval's scramble-heavy game, he has a very clear path to victory. We've examined the archetypes, operating systems, strengths, weaknesses, skill matrix, and paths to victory. Now it's time to put everything together and answer the question we've been building towards from the very beginning: who wins this fight? There's an old saying in combat sports that styles make fights, and that's why the Fighter Index verdict isn't simply based on the composite score. The composite score tells us who's more complete overall. The verdict looks at something different: how the styles interact, where the matchup advantages exist, and which intangibles could influence the outcome once the cage door closes. When I put all those pieces together, one fighter stands out as the more likely winner of this matchup. The Fighter Index verdict is that Lonnie Kavanagh wins this fight. At first glance, that may seem surprising. Royval holds a higher composite score, won 3 of the 4 pillars, and possesses advantages in several of the most important grappling categories. But the verdict isn't about who's more complete overall, it's about who is more likely to win this specific matchup. When I look at Royval's recent performances, I see a pretty clear pattern. His style is most effective when he can create scrambles, transitions, and chaotic exchanges where his opportunistic offense becomes a major factor. The problem for Royval is that Kavanagh has the tools to prevent many of those situations from happening in the first place. Kavanagh is the cleaner striker, the more defensively responsible fighter, and the more structured competitor. His calf kicks, 1-2 combinations, and disciplined range management give him multiple ways to score while forcing Royval to take risks in order to close distance. Those risks become especially dangerous against a fighter who consistently makes good decisions and avoids unnecessary mistakes. I also believe Kavanagh's takedown defense is one of the most important factors in the matchup. If Kavanagh can consistently deny Royval's attempts to initiate grappling exchanges and force the fight to remain primarily a striking battle, many of Royval's biggest advantages become much harder to access. Kavanagh has already shown that he can remain composed and technically disciplined against high-level, well-rounded opponents. While Royval is dangerous enough to change a fight with a single scramble or submission opportunity, I believe Kavanagh has the style, the discipline, and the defensive tools necessary to limit those opportunities over 15 minutes. Ultimately, I trust Kavanagh's ability to keep the fight structured more than I trust Royval's ability to drag it into chaos. That's why I'm going with Loney Kavanagh in this matchup. And that, my friends, is the full Fighter Index breakdown for Brendan Royval versus Loney Kavanagh. The Fighter Index is designed to evolve as fighters evolve, and community discussion plays an important role in that process. If there's a skill score, operating system, a path to victory, or a verdict that you see differently, let me know in the comments and explain how you would score the matchup. Do you agree that Kavanagh's technical striking, range management, and takedown defense can keep the fight structured enough to neutralize Royval's scrambling offense, or do you think Royval needs a few chaotic moments to completely change the fight? And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more Fighter Index analysis. Catch you on the next one.